Hello and welcome to today's webinar. This is Church360 Ledger, making month-end easy. Now this will be an overview webinar with a specific focus on those month-end tasks. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Peter Frank. I'm the Senior Manager of Marketing Technology here at Concordia Publishing House, and part of my role is leading the Concordia Technology Solutions team on the sales and marketing side. So I have a lot of experience working with these products, working with our developers, working with demos and other things, but I'm not going to be the one showing things off today. My colleague Ken Olemeyer will be presenting in just a little while. Ken is also a senior manager here in our marketing team. His job is a little bit different than mine. I'll explain that when I introduce him in just a few moments. But before we do that, a few housekeeping items to get us started. First off, we are planning about 50 minutes for presentation. This will kind of play fast and loose with that timing, but depending on how much we have to share, how many questions come in, but that's what our target time frame is. We are planning on about 10 minutes for question and answers at the end. Now, if you have a question throughout this whole presentation, go ahead and ask it. We've got a questions panel in our GoToWebinar account here. Put those in there. It'll show up on my screen over on my right, and I'll be answering those as I go, or answering those as Ken goes, I should say. So you'll get the answer one way or the other. Any that we have left, or if we have time, we'll go over the ones already answered during that Q&A. So we want to make sure you get your questions answered. Please feel free to put them in the chat at any time. Now, we are recording this webinar. We'll be sharing that recording with you probably tomorrow morning. That's usually our intention, is the day afterwards to get that out. So be on the lookout for that. If you have to step away for a few minutes or you want to review a certain part, we share these webinars because of that. We also share them because some people aren't able to attend. So if you are watching the recording for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry you weren't able to attend live, but you'll still be able to get the benefit of the presentation. Now, a little bit about us. Concordia Technology Solutions is the church administration division of Concordia Publishing House. We've been developing software for churches since 1984. And while the software has changed because the technology has changed, our purpose remains the same. We are here to serve churches, to provide technology solutions for the church to solve day-to-day problems in the office. Most of our products don't focus on the theology, but we provide the tools that allow you to administer your church and do some of the business side of things as easily as possible. And that's what we're talking about today. While Church360 Ledger doesn't have any theology in it, it's still designed for churches. So we'll get into that in just a few moments. My assumptions for today, we always make assumptions about who's joining us so that we can kind of frame the content in the right way. I'm assuming that you are not an accountant. If you are, great. What a wonderful blessing for your congregation to have an accountant who works on the church finances. But most people who work on church finances are not accountants. And we've designed Church360 Ledger and also this presentation to focus on people who are not accountants, but who are having to work with the finances. We're also assuming that you're new to Church360 Ledger. This will be an overview webinar, and we'll be focusing on month end, but it is going to cover most of the basic tasks that you do in Church360 Ledger. So if you've been using it for a while, there's going to be some redundancy here, but it's always good for a refresher. So if you have been using it, you'll learn a few things along the way. We're excited to have you. Finally, I'm assuming you're extremely busy. If you have to step away or if you're interrupted, that's just fine. That's why we record it. But we're going to do the best we can to give you valuable information because you're taking time out of your busy day today to watch this webinar. So I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Now to get us started, I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself. The first question I'm going to put as a poll question here is what your role in the church is. Now, people wear many different hats in the church. This is your primary role, the topmost hat, if you will. We always get a wide mix, but please go ahead and select the role that best describes you. Usually in our webinars, it's like I said, a pretty wide mix. In our Ledger webinars, typically we find most of the people in that financial manager role, but that can come in many shapes as well. Sometimes it's a treasurer, sometimes it's a financial secretary, sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's volunteer. But looking at the results today, we are at 100% in that financial manager role. And we do have a number of people here today, so that's great to see that. So thank you so much for answering that. We know that you are all working directly with the finances. All right, the next question I have for you, I'll go ahead and put this up there, is just asking if you're currently using Church360 Ledger. Typically for these overview webinars, the answer is no. but we do want to help everyone. And so that's where we host these. And a lot of times we have existing users as well. It's looking like we're pretty close to 50-50 right now. So that is good to know. We will make sure to cover it kind of from both ends of that spectrum. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that. All right, it ended up being a little bit closer to the 40-60 split. Very good. All right, well, my next slide here is to go through what Church360 Ledger is and how it fits into the bigger picture of things. So that's our focus today, is Church360 Ledger, but it is part of a larger suite of software solutions called Church360. Call it 360 because it's a complete church management, 360 degrees. Financial management is just one aspect of that. We also have Church360 members, which is all of your member contact information, their attendance, their offerings, which while is financial, has a place on the member record in addition to Ledger. We'll talk about that briefly when we talk about deposits coming in. And we also have Church360 Unite, which is our church website builder. This provides a number of different communication tools that you can use in the church. And so those three combined are Church360. Church360 Ledger, again, is focused on church finances. We developed it to be intuitive, secure, and focused on churches. You'll see that time and time again as we go through the presentation, that we wanted to make it very easy to use, we want to prevent mistakes, and keep it focused on what you and the church need. So what are those goals? Well, first off, like I mentioned before, most church finances are often managed by volunteers, and most volunteers are not accountants. For many churches who happen to have a treasurer who maybe is a retired accountant for a while, we had a gentleman in our church who was a retired controller. Those are great, but when you don't have that person in there, then it's whoever has the best knowledge on finances and is willing to spend their time. And we know that happens a lot in the church. Now, that makes it extremely important to have accountability in the church. It's not accountability just for preventing the ill intention from doing wrong. Certainly, we always want to do that, and that's whether you have volunteers or a paid person, a treasurer who's an accountant, or a volunteer who's an accountant or not. Preventing the ill intention is always important, and so we've got some safeguards in place to prevent that from happening. We don't want to hear any more stories on the news about churches who had somebody embezzle funds. We know that the devil is always at work and those things do happen, but we want to do our best to prevent that. But additionally, we want to prevent the well-intentioned from making mistakes. And I think this is what happens far more often in church finances, is that somebody who is trying to do the right thing didn't know the right thing to do, and it ended up messing up the finances. Well, those things are always going to happen. We can't prevent all of those, but we can do our best to try to prevent it. And so as we designed Church360 Ledger, it was designed to increase accountability, both on the ill-intentioned side, but especially on the side of preventing mistakes. So again, you're going to see that, especially as we look at month end with reconciliation. That's a core part of both of those. If you are balancing your accounts every month, you are going to find if there's anything odd or if there's anything that's a mistake, and you have the chance to correct it because you're balancing your books. So the outline for today, we're going to do an overview of the software. Ken's going to walk through the navigation, where the different screens are, how to set up your initial accounts, all that kind of thing. So chart of accounts comes next. Then we're going to get through some different types of transactions. We're going to mention credits and debits, but we're not going to teach you credits and debits. For one, if you're an accountant, you already know that. And two, if you're not an accountant, that's going to be a little bit more complex than we want to go over today. We're going to show you how Church360 Ledger does that for you. Then we'll get into the real meat of the presentation today, which is reconciliation, balancing your books at the end of each month. And then finally, we'll have some Q&A, and I'll jump back on and answer any questions that you put in the chat or that have come up during the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. Allow me to introduce Ken Olemeyer. Ken, like I mentioned, is a senior manager here in our marketing department, and Ken's job is quite different from mine. Where I work with software developers and our sales team and our marketing on this, Ken works directly day-to-day with our customers. In a non-pandemic time, he visits churches, goes into the office, talks with the different staff, here's how they're using our products, here's where we can be helping more, and then he comes back here to CPH and he shares these stories with the rest of the team. Ken is our direct line with our customers. While our doors are always open, it's a lot better when we are physically entering your doors and hearing from you. And so that's why I'm so glad that we have Ken, and that's why he's here today to present. While Ken is not an accountant and is not the expert at Church360 Ledger, he is the expert at knowing our customers, and that's what's so wonderful. So Ken, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being willing to present this product that I know is a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but you've done such a great job of learning it over the last several months. So I'm excited to see your presentation. Take it away, Ken.
Well, thank you, Peter, and thank you for joining us today. I, like Peter said, doing this in the middle of the day is kind of a chunk of time for you, as well as if you're watching this after hours and you're doing it on your own time too. So we really do appreciate you being here. As Peter mentioned, my name is Ken Olemeyer. I'm a senior marketing manager here at CPH. And while Peter and the Concordia Technology Solution team have been working with this software for years and know it like the back of their hands, I'm still relatively new at it. And as you said, I'm a marketing guy. I'm not an accountant by any means, but that's one of the reasons I like to share it with you, so that you can just see how simple and how powerful Church360 Ledger can be for you, and how it can keep track of all your church's financial information that you need. I love that we've got a lot of financial managers in here. So as I'm going through the presentation today, hopefully I'm going to spark an idea or two. If there's something that I'm just glossing over just because of time and you want to know more about it, please put those questions in the chat. Peter can help answer those right away. Or, if there's something that you want to know more about, please keep that in mind and have those questions. And let me just start by asking you a question about the end of the month. Now, I know we're still a couple weeks away from the end of the month, but how many of you actually look forward to it? You can raise your hands at home. Is it, stressful? Do you ever feel like you're behind? Or maybe it's just something you breeze through and it's not a big deal at all for you. But for many people, it's a fact that closing your financial books at the end of the month can be a little stressful, and it definitely can be time consuming. If you do this full time within your church, it can be stressful. If you do this part-time within your church, it can be stressful. And let's face it, month-end close is not glamorous by any means, but it is so necessary. And we're going to show you today what Church360 Ledger can do to help make that a little bit easier for you. As Peter said, I talk with a lot of church leaders. I talk with pastors. I talk with administrators. I talk with teachers. I talk with lay people. Many people just like you with a lot of different titles and a lot of different responsibilities. But one thing I hear consistently is the desire for the church to remain financially sustainable and to really take care in all the gifts that they receive, whether that be tithes and offerings or maybe investments that they have. And they always ask me, well, Ken, what does CPH have that can make this easier for us? Well, this software, this Church360 Ledger, I think is just a fantastic resource for that. And today we're going to be looking at it just from a 30,000-foot view. We're not going to be able to cover everything in our time today. I'm going to go through this pretty quick. But Church360 Ledger focuses on your church's finances. And that's why we call it Ledger. Members focuses on your members. It has some offerings and some different financial impact in it. But this is really what focuses primarily on your finances. So we're going to look at how the software is arranged. I'm going to kind of go through some of the navigation. We're going to take a look at how it provides a quick glance as well as a deep dive into your financial situation. I'm going to show you how simple it is, and more important, just how automatic everything is for you. Which, when it's automatic, it saves you time for other ministries, or it may save you time for other responsibilities that you have. And unlike other software where you have to do a lot of manual input, Ledger's power is really that so much of this is behind the scenes and really almost foolproof. It'll tell you when you're making a mistake, and that's going to be very helpful for you. So I know we've got a lot to cover. So let me switch into my screen right now. And I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make sure that I see it. And okay, I'm in the screen. So if you're not seeing the Church360 Ledger screen, please make a note of that in our comment section there. So when you sign into Church360 Ledger, this is your opening screen. This is the home screen. And it seems like there's a lot of information here, but it's really an effective dashboard and a nice snapshot on something. Now, if you think about it, one of the important things about closing your books at the end of the month is just making sure that you're gathering all the right information. Maybe that includes your revenue totals, or it might include your bank account information, or maybe you have a petty cash fund amount that you need to keep track of, or your financial statements, maybe your fixed assets, all the different things like that that you need, your general ledger as well. Whatever you need to close your books monthly, Church360 Ledger has it ready for you. So let's just get started here and let's walk through some of the navigation. And like I said, you should be seeing my home screen on your screen. So let's just start right up here at the top. This dollar sign is just the home button. Anywhere you go in the software, if you click on the dollar sign, it'll take you back to this home screen. The next thing here is a drop-down menu. And this is all the different books that you have. And we'll get into books a little bit later. But books are just used to organize your transactions that you have that might have completely different accounts or things like that. And you can add a number of different books here. For instance, here we have our church, we have our school, we've got a book that has some of the accounts for missions and outreach. And I'll show you later how simple it is to add one. You might want to have something for your youth group or your men's ministry or VBS time. Maybe you need a book to keep all those VBS receipts handy. So we'll get into that a little bit later. If we keep moving over to the right, I'm just going to click off of that, you see the print screen. And actually you see a notation there on the print screen. When you click into it, you see all the different things that you have in your print queue. And in this case, I have a number of checks that I need to print out. And we'll go through this as well. I'll show you how you can, when we do a check, how that will print out for you and how you can just keep moving forward with it. But that will always be the things in your print screen or your print queue. But if you click out of this, and I'm going to go back to my home screen here, you also notice that there's another print button right here. And that will allow you to also print your different things like the general ledger or your income and expenses or your chart of accounts or some of the different areas of reporting. And each report then will open up in a new print screen and a new tab and allow you to print it out. And I like paper copies. I'm one of these guys who really has to have everything as a paper copy to make notes on and circle and double check and all these type of things when it comes to my finances. So this is a very helpful screen for you. You're also here able to export to Excel. So let's say you need to print out a report or you need to do a little bit more to customize your charts and your graphs. You can do that here by exporting your data into an Excel file and then being able to do different things with it and however you want to handle it. One of the other great things about any of the Church360 suite is it is very flexible to your needs. So you can do a lot there. The next thing we see here, the next icon, and there's another arrow with a number of different things here, but these are our pending transactions. Now, this is pretty straightforward. This is imported from somewhere else, whether it's checks or deposits, or you see deposits, you see payments, different things here and there, or it's from our Church360 members or other services we integrate with. And some of the other services we integrate with, Peter would be able to explain a lot more of those easily to you. But some of the integrations might have your electronic payments or things like that. This just gives you a list of the deposits and the payments that are made. And what's great about it is you're able to then drill down too into it. And I love this feature throughout Ledger. Let's say I want to take a look at this $400 deposit given on June 7th. All I do is I click into it. You see, it's just going into the general fund. There's not much information here, but if this was all filled out, it would take me right to that information and give me a quick snapshot of what that transaction was. So I'm able to drill. The next icon here, and this is going to be an important one. We're going to go through this a lot throughout the course of the presentation today, but this is my book of reports. And I want to highlight it here because we're going to keep coming back to it a couple different times, but you see that we have the general ledger book of reports, income and expenses book of reports, a chart of accounts, and the balance sheet. And these are your four main reports. So again, because we have so many different financial managers on the call today, I mean, you guys are all aware of what this is, so I won't go too deep into any of these. But the other thing that's great in here, notice down at the very bottom, you have event log. Now, the event log basically keeps track of every single step, every single change, every single event that you do within Ledger. And this is very, very helpful when it comes to auditing purposes. Or sometimes if you just want to make sure, did I do that? You can go back into your event log and double check it for you. The next thing you see here, I'm going to click out of that, is the cog, or the wheel. And I click down in that, and this is a settings menu. And it's divided into two sections here. And the top section, chart of accounts, budget, fiscal years, reoccurring transactions, or imported transactions. Those will be dependent sometimes within the books that you have open. So right now, again, we just have the church book account. But if I were to open up one of the other books, those would be reflect those. Now, this other line, though, are things like general settings and users and roles and books and payees, things like this. We're getting a little bit into some of these, not too much, though, but roles is great because it allows you to set up people into different levels of how they can access the books and different things of this nature. And that's very convenient, again, to free you up to do some other things if you've got other people that can be doing some of this work as well. Pardon me. The books, as I mentioned, here's where you can add a book. So you see our school, you see our church. We've got a book for mission and outreach. It's very simple if you wanted to add one. Let's say add a new book right here. Let's say we wanted to do one for men's ministry. Men's ministry. Type it. And then you can set your fiscal, and it'll start just like that, and hit submit. So now we've added just another new book there. Last couple of things, I'm going to click out of that. Last couple of things in here as well are payees. You know, these are all the different people, obviously, that you need to pay. You can easily add a new one in here as well. So a lot of flexibility as far as what you can do with all of these. So then the last final setting is your user settings. And I'm not going to get too deep into this, but here's your user settings. And it's also where you can log out. One other thing that's a nice feature too, just like many financial websites, if you're inactive on the site for a while, it will automatically sign you out. Then you'll just have to come back in and sign in. A few final things as we're here. And I'm going to go back to my home. So I'm hitting my dollar sign, going back home. This Omni bar right here. You can search and go directly to different sections very easily for here. So let's say I wanted to go to my assets. I just start typing that in. I click straight to it. My asset page opens up. Let's say I wanted to go to my expense page. Expense, oops. Oh, there it is right there. Click into it, my expenses open up. So it's just a very convenient way to get to different areas in from your home page and do it right away. And then the last thing you see here is new transactions. I'm going to drop down on that. And we'll go through this a little bit more in depth as well, too, as we go through today. But you see your transfer, you see deposits, you see payment, you see checks, and you see journal entry. And then finally is just the dashboard. And this is the entire program. Now, I'm a very visual person, so I love the fact that I have easy to see charts and graphs. I can move up and see different account balances for that particular day. I can click into any one of these and go into it and see where I am. There's a lot of information here, but that's what's so great about it. And you can click into any one of these as you go. And then the final thing I love to show and make sure that I'm showing is down here in the bottom right-hand corner. You see this circle I right here. This is information, and it will always follow you around on the page. So you're never just at a want for information. You can type in a particular search for a help article, or there might be some suggested articles that are available to you right away. The other thing that there is an opportunity to send us a message. And let me just say this, we are here for you on this software program, as well as any of the Church360 suite. Yeah, there's nothing more frustrating than trying to use a new software package. And I know we're at 40-60, Peter said, or 50-50 as who are using and who aren't. Nothing more frustrating than kind of having to learn a new software package. Well, we've got a lot of training available for you that can go more in depth in a lot of these areas, as well as other webinars and articles. And we even have a manual that you can purchase as well. But this right here is a lifeline no matter what your question is. You can put a subject line in there. What information should we know? Try to be as specific as you can so that we can help answer it for you as clearly as we can the first time to make sure we're helping you. But we're happy to go through and respond a number of times. But there's also this, an 800 number, and you can call that 800 number at 800-346-6120 and speak to one of our support staff, and they'll be able to answer your question as well. So for me, I use that circle I all the time when I'm on here. So what are some of the items on your month-end checklist? You know, one of the first things you have to make sure is that you're recording all of your incoming cash. And whether that's revenue coming in from your tithes and offerings, or maybe you have different loan payments or investment payments that are coming in for you, you know, whatever and wherever that information is coming from. And that could be transfers or between accounts or deposits or things like that. So let's start with the drop-down menu there and just start showing you how easy it is to keep track of those transactions. So I'm going to start here, and we're going to go to New Transactions. I'm going to drop that down, and let's just start with a transfer. And this is moving money between accounts. So if I click into Transfer, it opens up this screen here that you see. And these can occur between assets to assets, or maybe liability to liability, or income to income, or expense to expense. But for sake of today, let's do an income to income. So you see a couple different things here. You see a memo line, and this is optional, but you know, I like to have it just so I can keep in mind what it is. Then you also see the date right here, and you can move back and forth on this date. I could even go forward, but I don't think you'd be doing anything ahead of time. But I could go back, and let's say it was in June 23rd. So we'll click into that, and you can see where then it sets that date for you. Let's see. You can also go in and make this reoccurring if this is a reoccurring thing, and you can also go back and edit. So let's put something in here. Let's go asset to asset. Let's just say VBS, and let's go $300, and that asset is going into our checking account. So this was from our VBS account into our checking account. Now you notice right off the bat, everything starts filling in, and it does your debits and your credits automatically, and we'll hit save, and you'll see that green bar. So my transaction was created. Let's go in here real quick though, and let me show you how I normally do these things. So let's say I do a savings account, and let's say I put in $600, and my asset, well, it only allows me to do assets to assets, liabilities to liabilities. So that's one of the foolproof type of things. But if for some reason this wasn't in here and I only had $200, well, then it automatically splits to another $400. So I need to show where that other remaining balance is going to go. So maybe that then goes into our checking account, and I can then hit save. So a lot of that is automatically done for you, and especially with all of you who have a background in some type of financial management, you'll understand those type of things. But if you don't, or if it's not something you use every day, it's very easy to pick up. Let's keep moving on to transactions, and let's just show deposit. I love deposits, you know, adding money to our accounts, our assets account, like checking or savings or things like that. So again, the screen is very similar. Once you start to learn one of them, you'll see the repetition we have through here. So again, you have your memo line if you wanted to add something, my date. I'm going to add this back. I'm going to just go back to June, since we're going to talk about month end. My payee. Okay, this is optional as well. So I'm just going to click out of that. But let's say, again, it was maybe the CD was coming due, and we had $200, let's just say. An asset to my income, I'm depositing that into my general fund, and let's see that work. So you see the transaction was created. Again, what's great about it, the other thing you see down here are my accounts are starting to be in my general ledger right here too. So for instance, let's say I needed to go in and make a change to this or take another look at it. I can do that right from there. Let me go back here. You can easily go back in and do some more edits. You can also go back in and do some voids and some copying as well. So let's go into payments. So now payments are made to enter electronic transactions, or whether those are online or electronic payments. And again, with payments, you can only do assets, liability, or expense accounts can be used. So it's a similar process to all the other ones. Again, I have a memo line right here that I can do. I can have my payee. Perhaps this was an insurance one. And this is coming from my unrestricted checking account. It was $200. Decided, oh, it's not today's date. It is a payment that was due at the end of the month, last month. My expense or liability was, maybe it was on the building loan. I hit save, and that transaction was created. So you see how simple those, making these type of transactions are. And one of the things, especially when you're thinking about month end, is being sure that you're keeping up with it. But again, depending upon your time or the amount of work that you have to do in other areas, that's where it's nice if we can go back and put the dates in and do different things in that regard too. The last thing here in transactions are checks. And check writing is very, very easy here. So let's try a check write. Again, you see it very similar to all the other ones, but it's simple to do. So let's say a memo. The church is buying the new One and All Rejoice hymnals. So One and All Rejoice hymnals. And if you don't know what those are, we just released a brand new children's hymnal. It's fantastic. So we're going to pick up a case of those. And we're going to pay that to Concordia Publishing House. So you see my list of payees is right there. In fact, let me just clear that again and just highlight that. So my list of payees are right here, so I can just quickly go in and just find my payees like that. This is coming from my checking account. And let's see, check number. I can add the check number itself. Let's say it's check 126568, let's say. So I can add my check number here. Now you're starting to see how all this is filling in below as well. And let's see, the expense or liability. This was a ministry expense. So I'm going to say my Sunday school ministry. So is that, oh, let's give it an amount. Let's say $360. And actually, I'm going to clear that out because it put that in immediately. So I needed to put that back. So Sunday school ministry. So I'm making sure I'm designating it to the right place. And again, I have the option to save or make reoccurring. You see the bottom there, my debits and credits are correct. I'm going to hit save. And now my check is now back in my print queue. Let's go back to the print queue right now since we've got it. And you see now I have 5 there. So I'm going to go into there. And you see my different check numbers right there. Let's just say I can go in and print individual checks, or I can print all of those. If I hit print, and you've got 2 options, your mark is printed. So let's say you put this information into your account, but these were handwritten checks or other things like this, and they're loaded up here. You can then mark them as printed, or they're things that you printed out or did in a different way. You can mark it as printed, or you can hit print. And what that does is pull up your checks here, and there are different types of pre-done checks that you can use with Ledger. Again, some of that information is within our service areas and our tech support people and things of that nature, but there are different ways around here. But you see everything is written right there on the checks. I just hit print, it goes to my printer then, and we can get rid of that. So let's just see. So I'm just going to cancel this because it'll start looking for my printer. All right, I'm going to go back to home and do that. So then the one last thing within this area is the journal entries. So if I click into journal entries, this is where we can make corrective actions in the things that we've done. And again, let's say you're trying to balance your items and you notice there might be a payment or a transaction that might be off by a few dollars, or let's say there's a journal entry that needs to add a service fee that we forgot about or something like this. Here's where you can go in and do that type of thing. And journal entries can be done for all types of accounts. So it's very simple. Again, you've got your memo up here, you've got your payee, which is an optional. You've got your date that you can change. Clicking through too many things too fast. You've got your account, your first account, and then your second account. You can add account in there, and then debits or credits. You can make that reoccurring. Let's say there is a monthly similar reoccurring service fee that you want to make sure that you're getting. Hit verify and save on all that. I click out of there. And then we mentioned the dashboard. The dashboard gives you just a nice quick overview of everything where you are. And you see how, here's the check that I put in here, and you see that it's unprinted right now. What's great about this is it gives you the overview, but it also allows you to do a deep dive into things. So let's say I wanted to look at payees. So I click into there. I can see all the different payees that I have listed under Concordia Publishing House for this one. Let's say I wanted to, well, that takes me back to all my payees. I click out of that. But let's say I wanted to look at my Verizon bills. Okay, I see that where those are. I'm gonna click back here and just keep going back to my home page. Let's say I want to look at my my savings account. Click into that. From here, list comes up with my savings account information. You see the different dates here as well. You see a journal entry, and I can click into that and see what that journal entry was. Well, it was an initial balance. So that tells me what the information is. So a lot of this saves you time, or if you're sharing this responsibility with maybe another person in your church, sometimes it's helpful just to kind of get a sense of where some of the information came from. And you can do that very quickly by just digging down into some of these. So you have the drop-down menu here. So I can either just not see everything, or I drop it down. I also then see my assets, my liabilities, income, expenses. And again, if I just click right into it, it takes me into what my expenses are. And you see this running total here on the chart. Now, what's great about this is I'm then able to export this to Excel, or I can print it out. I can also look at different ranges as well. And we have that here for you. So you notice this drop down here, and this is all part of the navigation, and I didn't go through this originally. But you can then change your date ranges. Maybe you want a quarterly information. You can do that 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters, or maybe you just want a date range. You can do that here. I'm just kind of highlighting those areas for you. Maybe you need to change months to a specific time frame as well. It's very simple to do that here, and then you can download that, you can export it, you can print it. It just provides more information for you there. Okay. Let's go back to the top icon here, this general ledger. Let's go back to my general ledger and take a look at some of these. All the transactions and changes made across all of your accounts are right here in your general ledger. So now changing the books would change this as well. If I went into my missions and outreach book, it would be different, but it would be all the things that were associated with that account. But here under our church, you see all the different things that we have here listed. You see corrections, you see transfers, you see checks, payments. Everything is shown right here. And what's great about this, there's a lot of different ways to personalize this chart, if you will, or customize this chart. I can go in, first of all, and just change the type, the change. Right now I've got all of them highlighted, but let's say I just want to do deposits. I click into that, and now it just lists all my deposits. Again, where this is great, it just saves you a lot of time by being able to target into that one thing that you want to see, or provides that big picture overview of everything that you might want to see. And then let's say I want to change my accounts. Again, I can click into here. I can click out of all of them, and maybe I just need to see my grass cutting and my electric, let's say, if I have anything. Okay, I don't have anything in there, but maybe I want, instead of deposits, that would make sense if I have any checks to make to them. Well, let's just do all and see if I've got any payees, and let's just go back to all. All right, I'm just going to click back to my home page and make sure I'm on the right things there. But anyway, it's so easy to change that view and be able to do different things, to be able to see what you want to see. And you see different items here in this chart. You see the payees, you see the account, you see any memos, you see different amounts. And you also see the range that I'm going here. But what would happen if I go to income and expenses? Okay, here's my income and expenses view now. This provides a summary of our income, and that might be revenue that we're getting from our offerings or other types of things, interest, rental income, etc., or our expenses, our spending that we have, salaries, materials, utilities, etc. And I can change the view of this as well. Let's just say I want to just go again to a nice straight, clean view, income and expenses, bottom line, that's all I need to see. But wait, what is my income? I can drop this down. I can look at our offerings. Maybe we have tuition included there in our income or other, our rental income. Or I want to go to expenses and kind of just see that. I'm going to click up here just so you can see the screen. The salaries that we have, our church office staff salary and benefits, maybe some different ministry expenses that we have, other things here and there. And there's simple ways to add those into from our chart of accounts and our different things here, imported transactions and such. I'm not going to get into how to add different things, but you see that those can be done quite simply. I want to be sure we've got enough time to go through here. Again, you can then also export to Excel or print this and change your date range. Another one here is just the chart of accounts in general. So I'm clicking into there. And this is great because, again, this shows that entire snapshot for you of all the different accounts that you have and your income and your expenses and your liabilities and your assets. And it all starts with a starting balance and your ending balance, gets into your debits, your credits, your change plus or minus, or your change percent. So as you're doing your budgeting, planning and looking at where you are in relation to where you need to be or where you had planned to be, here's a great way to look at everything. Again, you can just change the views by just clicking up the arrows or down the arrows, and that just makes it more simplified for you. Also able to export to Excel and also able to print. Then we get into our balance sheet. And the balance sheet, again, just shows everything from one starting place. The starting balance, your ending balance, your debits, your credits, your changes plus or minus, your change percents, and same type of thing. We can clean it up. We can make it a little bit more concise, or we can add a lot more to it. And again, this is just a demo website. So I'm sure your balance sheet may have a lot of different payees or a lot of different expenses and liabilities, or hopefully a number of different assets as well too. Also able to do the Excel to, or pardon me, export to Excel or to print as well. So I'm just going to go back to home page. And since we're talking about month end and trying to figure out how we're going to close the month end, let's take a quick look at how we reconcile accounts. Okay, so we go back to our home page, which I just did, and we click into assets. And I talked about how we're able to drill down to certain things. So just click onto your assets. That opens up our banks and investments. So let's just keep clicking through. So I'm going to go to banks and just keep clicking through until we get to our checking account. So let's go here. So you see our savings account and our checking account. So I'm going to click into checking account. All right, and you see how my screens have changed after every one of those clicks. So now I'm at a point where the reconcile button comes up, and this is going to be perfect for year end, or pardon me, for month end for you to be able to do that. And you see I've got all these open reconcilable things until I get down here, and then the icon of the lock shows that those have been reconciled. But I want to reconcile this now, so I'm going to click onto reconcile, and another screen comes up. So this is reconciling our checking account. And the statement date, let's say I can go in and change that date, maybe it was to the 2nd. And I have to add my starting balance and my ending balance. So let's say for a starting balance, and you get those from right here. So let's say my my starting balance, let me scroll down and see that. Just keeps popping me off. So let's say 36,750. Let's see if that works. See if I've got everything started. And then my ending balance is 39,921.42. All right. So all I have to do now is just click through the transactions and mark them. And I'm wondering why I keep getting bumped down, but let's see. Let's start adding these. And you see now my differences and how far I'm off. And I just click, click, click. Whoop, now I'm ahead. Now I'm off. All right. So I've got a problem here because I'm not able to save this. It won't let me save it until I'm right at 0. And I would need to kind of go through, and I apologize, my screen keeps getting cut off here. So it's not letting me see what the last one is. Maybe try that one more time. 39, 921, 42, 36, 50. Now, I've picked a bad example to show you here, but I'm going to try to get close. And like I said, it will not allow you to do this until you're at 0. And it's really strange. It's not letting me do that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do here real quick. I'm just going to do, I learned a new trick on this the other day sometimes if it's just acting up. So let's see if I can do it one more time. I think I got a couple minutes here. All right, I'm going to try to reconcile it one more time. All right, now I can see. So let's try this. Starting balance is 36,825, and then my ending balance, I'm gonna end it at 39,921 and see if that will allow me to do it. 39,921, 42, and now I'm just gonna keep going through and clicking through here, and let's see if I can get this to zeros. And if any of you financial people are looking at this and saying, well, I know what he's doing wrong, type it in the thing. So let's click through. I'm still off by 650. Now I'm off by 250. Now I'm off by 610. Well, obviously I've added something into the mix that's not allowing me to close it off, but this is how you reconcile. And it won't let you do it until you get to 0. But once you hit 0, that will help reconcile that month end for you. It'll take it back to your reports, and it'll put it in your event log. And like I said, let's just take a quick look at the event log. When I click into event log, it shows me all the different transactions I've done, all the different areas and things. It gives me a timestamp. Like I said, this is so helpful when it comes down to doing your auditing or making sure that you're just checking all those, crossing those T's and dotting those I's and making sure that you've got everything. It even shows you when you've got a new transaction or a revision of a transaction. And what's great about this is you can export it to Excel. You can also print it so that you always have a record of this. So let me get back to home here. So how do you think you would use Ledger? Something like this. You know, as you can see, Church360 Ledger is a pretty powerful yet pretty automatic tool. And just imagine how you could use it and how it could free you up, especially when we're talking month-end close and then being able to do your year-end close and just doing it the day-to-day type of financial management that you need to do. And I always think about something when I wrap up these type of conversations. You know, I always think that people who watch it, there's always kind of two people who watch these type of things. There are those who will do nothing and just keep using the same tools that they use and keep getting the same results that they've always been getting. And then there are other people that will watch something like this. They'll see it, they'll hear it, they'll spark an idea or two, and they'll begin to see maybe immediate new results or immediate ways to save time. And we've got a great opportunity right now for you. And I'm sure Peter will talk a little bit about this when I switch it back to him, but it's a great opportunity to try a free 37-day trial of Church360 Ledger and see if this might be something that could be helpful for you. And you say, why 37 days? Well, we want to give you that time to work through your month-end close and make sure that it works for you. So as we wrap this up, as I said, there's so much that this software can do, and I just kind of started touching through and scratching the surface. I'm hoping that I sparked a few questions. I'm hoping that there's some good discussion that has come from this, and you see maybe some different ways to use it that you're not using now. And we're going to be offering more of these type of sessions. We do a number of webinars, whether it's Church360 members, Church360 Unite, which is our web building software, or Ledger. We'll do more on Ledger, or sometimes we'll also do Lutheran Service Builder online. So by all means, we appreciate it when you get those emails and you sign up, or you come back in and watch this at a different time or share this with others. We are here to help you, and we want to make this software as simple as possible for you to use. So be looking for other announcements coming up with future webinars. And with that, I want to just thank you again for attending. I know I went through some of this very quick. I know we just started to scratch the surface. I'm hoping you've got some questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Peter now and see if there are any questions, or just see if he can explain some of the things that I may have just kind of left there up in the air for you. So Peter, I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Ken. I was having issues seeing your screen. It's the same thing that happened a couple webinars ago, and we figured it out for the last one, but I think your blue screen of death beforehand might have reset things. But that's okay. I know everybody else could see it because we didn't have any complaints and we had some questions come up. So
good.
All right, let me go ahead and we talked about the 37-day free trial. You can go and do that at 360ledger.com. One thing I want to caution you on is that you don't have to be worried about entering fake data. Sometimes people will like look at it but not actually use it because they want to start their books off clean. Typical financial people wanting clean books. Don't worry about that. You can start a free trial. We can always help you set up a new set of books or a new trial entirely, or a new account if you're ready to move forward. So 360ledger.com, I encourage you to do that today. Now, we often get a lot of questions about pricing, and that's one of the things that came up. But I want to clarify that we are transparent about our pricing. It's a pretty straightforward thing. It's based on whether you'd like to pay monthly or annually, and whether you have our two other Church360 software products. So if you are purchasing Ledger by itself, it's $40 a month or $400 a year. If you are a Church360 members customer, or a Church360 Unite customer, we typically don't have people buy it in that combination. It's $30 a month or $300 a year. And if you're buying all three, then Ledger's only $20 a month or $200 a year. Now, there is a $199 startup fee that goes with each subscription. And that's just your first year only. It's to get you up and running. It helps cover the costs associated with personalized training for your church, where you'd work with a software support technician who will kind of just walk you through that whole process of getting up and running. And you can kind of pick how many people from your church are involved with it. It could be one-on-one training, or you can get others from your church, but it's just you and your church and our team. So it's not like a group setting like we are in today. So real personalized training. But if you purchase before the end of the month, we're going to take $100 off that startup fee, which I know, especially during this time right now with the pandemic and with giving being down in many churches, I know that's especially helpful. So we wanted to make sure to let you know about that today. There's still several weeks left in the month. I know that decisions can take some time to be made in churches, especially when you can't meet as regularly as maybe you used to. So that's the special offer. Be sure to mention that to the software consultants as you're working with them to get started. We want to make sure you can take advantage of that deal. It really will alleviate some of the financial burdens that you're facing these days. All right. Now, if you have follow-up questions, there's my contact information on the screen again. peter.frank@cph.org is the best way to reach me. You can call my phone number as well, although I'm typically not answering it all the time, but I do have it right here. Most of the time it's going to voicemail, but I usually follow up very quickly. Feel free to reach out to me at any time, but with my email, that's the best way to get a response. Now, software consultants are the team that helps you figure out if Ledger is the right fit, and they can do a personalized demo for your church and really answer your questions one-on-one. You can reach out to them at softwaresales@cts.cph.org. They will walk you through that entire sales process all the way down to getting started and being handed off to the support technicians for your initial onboarding. You can also call them at that number listed on the screen. All right, let's get into some question and answers. We've got a few in there. One of them was just related to the quality of the video, and it sounds like Michael was able to stick around for that, so that's good. I noticed, Ken, that some of your video is a little bit blurry, so we'll have to look into that later.
Yeah, I hope that there wasn't an issue. As Peter mentioned, I had just a little bit of a computer glitch just before we started today.
I was
Which is
ready
always
to
fun
come
to
up.
do right before a webinar.
That's right. I was getting everything ready to go to present on my own, but I'm glad that you were able to come back in and show that for everybody. The next question is access to Ledger the same for members? Now, there are actually different credentials, and we do that to keep it separate because there's very different pieces of information in each. And while we do try really hard to have all of that different level of granularity, we keep those separate. And so you can invite users to Ledger and set up their different roles. You invite users to members and set up their different roles. So those are separate processes right now. We're reviewing that, looking at different options. Changes in security and the comfort across web apps has changed since we first launched Ledger. So I could see a possibility of that in the relatively near future. It's one of those things where we're looking at tying all of our sign-ons together across all of our products. It's a big project and it'll take a little time to get there, but I think ultimately that's going to be the more convenient route. And since we have continued to advance our individual roles, I think that roles within each software, I think that'll be something that you'll see in the near future. So that was that question. Let's see, I took care of that one there. I don't have any more specific questions actually as I was looking at that because some of them were not related to Ledger. So Ken, is there anything that you had that you wanted to come back to?
Well, one thing I always love, especially with this Church360 suite, is the fact that you can do this with Mac or PC because it's all web-based. And I know when we had some of these originally, they were just PC only, and you had to be locked at that one computer at your church that had it. But now with being able to be web-based, you can do it from different locations, and you have the access to both platforms.
Absolutely, and you can access it from your tablet devices too. You can access it from your mobile device. It's not optimized for mobile just because most of the time people who are working on church finances are not doing it on the go. You're sitting down at your desk and you're going through all your statements, but on a tablet it works out well. And I think of like meetings at the church where you may not have a computer or you may have a laptop but not a way to present it. You can just pull out your tablet, show people without printing all that paper that you like so much, Ken. So that's my recommendation. Good. All right. Corey's asking the question, can Ledger import data and transactions from bank accounts? Not at this time. We don't have that connection. Some of it's a security concern. There's also been some changes in that integration recently. There's been some standardization and then some banks have fallen out and it's become frustrating. So we've looked at that. It's still a possibility for the future, but right now it's not stable enough for our safety requirements. So that is not something that we offer right now. But I appreciate the question. We'll definitely put it into feedback to show that there's still interest in that, but we want to make sure that that integration with the different bank accounts works out well.
Hey, Peter,
right.
Can you talk a little bit about safety?
Oh, sure, absolutely. There's good things about Ledger in the fact that the data that we track is not bank account information. We are not connecting to your account to make transactions or anything like that. In fact, even the account number that you put in there is not enough to really do anything with. So what you're seeing is you're seeing a representation of your accounts. But we still protect it. We use the same security that banks use so that your data is always frequently protected from any predators who are coming after it. Any of the attacks that we've tracked and stopped have all been automated bots that are just phishing the internet looking for some vulnerabilities. And of course, we see them attempt it and we see them fail. And those are not too often, and we've never even had a direct attack on ours. But we utilize servers that all of the big software companies utilize because it's that important to us. So we go probably a little bit more than we need to on security to protect this information, just because it's important at the church level. From a stewardship standpoint, we know that you are looking out for your church, for your finances, for your intellectual property. We want to respect that and do everything we can in our power to protect that. Now, from not necessarily a threat standpoint, but from a disaster standpoint, that also comes into the type of servers that we use. Everything is redundant, meaning there's multiple servers that are being utilized so that if one of them goes down, there's more available. We also back up this data on a nightly basis. So if in some crazy circumstances, all of the servers go down, we still have a separate server with that backup that we can put in place. That doesn't mean that if you make a typo that we're going to go and restore the backup, because we have journal entries for that. But that does mean that your data is always safe. So thanks for bringing that up, Ken. That's a fantastic thing to talk about. Security is so important, and it's one of those things that you kind of take for granted, but you don't want to take for granted. You got to ask those questions. Good. Well, Ken, do you have any other questions that have come up? I'm waiting to see if there's anything else that comes into the chat.
No, you pretty much addressed the ones that I see. So
Okay, great. Well, thank you, oh, one last came in. If a change is made to offerings and members, does it update in Ledger, or would that need to be done manually? That would need to be done manually if you've already made that transaction. So those pending transactions that come in are showing the representation of members at that time. Once you turn that into a transaction, then you're kind of locking that in place. And we definitely don't want to change your transactions after you've submitted them, because for one, that's not our job to do that for you. And kind of, it's like pulling the rug out from under you. We made a deposit and now all of a sudden the dollars have changed. But also, it should all be tracked with those journal entries. And so we want to make sure that once that transaction is made, that it's a very intentional change on your part. So typically those membership or those offering batches shouldn't change after you've moved it into Ledger, because when it goes into Ledger, that means you've deposited it into the bank. You don't want that to change after it's been deposited into the bank, because then it's not accurate anymore. So great question on that. Thanks so much, Corey. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up again. Remember that special offer of $100 off the startup fee ends at the end of this month. So what is today, the 9th? You've got about 3 weeks before the end of the month. So I hope you can take advantage of that. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or our software. Whoops, wrong one. Too far back. There we go. Me or our software consultants. Our contact information is on the screen. Ken, thank you again for your presentation. From everything that I could hear, it was wonderful. You did a great job. Thanks so much, everybody, for attending. Have a great day.